This is the Mazz and Bads Show with Brandon Marrazzo and Charlie Badwini.
What is good? We are back with another one, the Mazz and Bad Show. Of course, I am your host, Brandon Mazz Marrazzo, joined by producer Anthony Cafone. Shout out Charlie Badwini, holding down the job so he couldn't be here for this very important interview, but I know he wanted. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a very important guest in the building. We've been trying to get this one for a minute. The brand new sports director of WUTR Utica, my man Dorian Alerte. How you doing, buddy?
That was a hell of an intro. I can't lie. So I appreciate that. I'm doing well. How about you guys?
Bro, we are chilling, man. We are just excited for this, man. I should have given the whole thing. I had it all written down too. I mean, listen, my man's the voice of Kane University over the last what 3-4 years plus. Also, writer for the Buffalo Bills, bro. You've been all over the place in such a short time, man. My first question for you is, how do you just keep on accomplishing these goals, man? It just seems like every year there's just a new target and you just knock it out of the park.
No, it definitely seems that way, right? Like, honestly, the journey's been so crazy. But honestly, it's just one. I think my faith is number one, where I'm like, all right, let me write down my goals, let me pray on it, and then let's see where we go from there. But on top of that, man, it's like you guys know, it's a grind, man. Like we just got to keep working. So it's definitely like, all right, I see something. The way my mind works, my friends all get pissed off with me because the way my mind works, it could literally be 2 o'clock in the morning. If I have an idea, I'm gonna text them. Obviously, they won't text me back at that point because they're probably asleep. But I like if I have an idea, like this past week, I've had a ton of just things I've been thinking about when it comes to my new role as sports director. And I've just been like, all right, like 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning. Okay, let me get this idea down. Let me write this down. Let me text somebody. Let me ask them a question. And honestly, it's just I think that's the number one thing that I have that I've kind of looked at being like, all right, how can I get creative? How can I have fun in whatever role this is? Let me see how I can make this different. Always asking questions, being curious, and just like I said, getting out of the creative bag.
So, speaking of that creative bag, obviously trying to get like those juices flowing, but you got to get the work out of the way first, right? Before you can put everything to paper. And, not only do you hold a bachelor's in sports communication, but also a master's with it. Where did this journey all begin for you? Like, Ant over here knew from a very young age he wanted to get into this. I discovered this industry way later, like in life, had no clue it was even a possibility. But for Dorian Alert, where did it all begin?
Ooh, that's a good question. Honestly, like my I guess my the where it began is kind of different than some other people because honestly, I didn't even know. I went this route a little later, like you said. I decided that I wanted to go this route when I was a sophomore in college. Like actually the summer leading into being a sophomore, and even then I really didn't even know. I went so originally, I went to a high school called the Health Science Academy, and there, a lot of the students there are looking to get into the medical field. Some people, computer science, so on and so forth. And so I honestly thought I was going to be an optometrist. My entire life since I was a kid, I was like, I want to be an eye doctor. I want to be an optometrist. Blah, blah, blah. So I went to this high school, and I actually had a teacher, and I told him this recently, by the name of Mr. Lugo, and I'm a huge Cowboys fan, so I've always loved sports. I've always loved football, and so he knew that, and he was an Eagles fan. And so when we would get into class and we'd be chopping it up, we'd be having conversations like Cowboys beat the Eagles. Ha, guess what? And Eagles beat the Cowboys. Well, I walk into class like, dang, you got me. And we actually had a project at the end of my freshman year of high school where we had to put on a newscast. And so obviously, I did sports at the end of the newscast. And so I was like, all right, cool. Let me see what I can do. And it was a really cool experience. But again, in my mind, I'm like, all right, I'm gonna be a doctor. I'm gonna be a doctor. Um, when ended up going spending the next 2 year the my junior senior year at Hightstown High School. I transferred out of that school. I went to Hightstown High School, and while I was in Hightstown, I took another class. I took history of sports, and I met Tony Page, and it was, a lot of things were kind of like, oh wow, like this is a really cool industry. I don't know how to get in, but I really want to try and work in sports, and so went to college. Thing again, still on the I'm gonna be an optometrist, but I But now I'm thinking, okay, maybe I can do something and be an optometrist for like a professional team. Then I took a chemistry class and I was like, yeah, no, this isn't for me. So I ended up changing majors that summer to communications. It always, again, it always kind of was something. Look, I like you guys. I woke up every morning and watched First Take. I watched Undisputed. You know, all those shows. Sports Center was a staple. To the point where my family was like, Dorian, if you're just gonna watch Sports Center, go in your room and watch it by yourself because we don't want to sit here and listen to them talk about this, talk about that. But you know, it was always something that was playing. So eventually ended up taking a sports communication class my sophomore year of college, and from there I met one of my mentors, Bill Daughtry. And again, just it was more of a thing of just having conversations and meeting people, and then literally sending out a ton of. This was right before COVID hit. Literally sending out a ton of DMs on Instagram, just to people within the industry, like, "Hey, my name's Dorian. I'm a sophomore at Kane University. I'm really interested in getting in this industry. Is there any advice you can give me? Is there anything that I can know or learn, or what do I need to do to be successful in this industry?" And I was blessed enough to have some people reply back to me, and that's really where it started. Just that one little class in high school, all the way up until my sophomore year of college, was again, I'm thinking, okay, I'm gonna be an optometrist. And then I was like, you know what? No, I was in the STEM program on top of that. So the students in that program like ate, breathed, like slept. Everything was STEM. And I'm sitting there like, oh, did you guys watch the game last night? Like, it was one of those things where I was like, all right, let me see where I can kind of create my own lane and find my own passion. That's kind of the start of how I ended up where I am.
And Dorian,
Yo,
when I
so
first
how
met you, hold on, Matt, for a second. We were at that Kane football game, Montclair versus Kane. It was 2023, and
Nope.
we got to talking about just in general about the teams that we were associated with. We were at Montclair, you were at Kane, and then like you said, like you made the jump over from sports. What was the hardest thing for you when you first got into this industry? You thought maybe, oh, it's just talking sports, to now, oh my goodness, this is way more than just doing that. I had to learn all these different skills.
No, definitely. I think I you know everything at first, right? Like it's like, what, I can talk sports. I can hold a conversation. No, like it's harder than a lot of people think, especially, I met you doing play by play. Like, I don't think a lot of people realize, like, there's a lot of prep that goes into
Mm-hmm.
those things. And I think that was, I don't necessarily think if it was the hardest, but it was definitely one of those things where I was like, oh my gosh, like, if you really want to be good at this, you have to prep. You have to put in the work behind the scenes for maybe a 1.5 hour to 3 hours. And there's a ton of stuff you might not even use, right?
Yeah.
Like you kind of got to see where things go. And I think that was one of the most difficult parts. I also think, for me, just kind of getting out of my shell. I'm kind of naturally an introvert, but which is really funny considering the career we're in, where it's like, well, you got to talk to people, and I like to call myself a professional extrovert, where, like, when I go out to work, obviously I'm talking to everybody, I'm having a good time, so on and so forth. But I'm kind of just a quiet person. So this career actually just helped me, break out of my shell a little bit. Like I said, I'm introverted. I hate public speaking, which again is very ironic because it's like the entire job is public speaking, and so that I think those two were the most difficult things. Just honestly learning how to prep and knowing what to prep.
it's so funny, dude, because like for me, like the hardest thing ever, public speaking, not a problem, could always do it. The second I got in front of a camera, I don't know what it was, I kind of froze. Like, I'll never forget, the worst I ever had in broadcasting was the first day of our internship, where I was supposed to interview like the head football coach for Montclair State at the time. It was his 40th season. Shout out Rick Gincola. And at the last second, I had this whole beautiful introduction, and so I thought, for him. And at the last possible second, he sent his assistant head coach, I believe, associate head coach, if I'm not mistaken, was Plaza at the time. Sent him over, and I was just like, I was so rattled for like that interview where it's like, dude, when I tell you I had to do 12 takes just for like the interview went okay. It was the introduction for him that like I thought you could just memorize everything and it'd be fine, but then it got switched on me at the last. And dude, you can ask Ant, like I unraveled like it like a roll of tape. Honestly, like
you
it
had
was
to really
bad.
talk him down after that one. It was brutal.
Oh, I was losing my mind, dude. Like I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Like this is insane. Like
No,
you know.
you know what's really insane too is like we've been doing this for a little while, and I think this 2025. So I've really been doing this for like 4 years, and so getting on camera, I'm thinking, okay, cool, but literally my first day as sports director here in Utica, they were like, or maybe my second day, um, they were like, all right, today's gonna be your first day on air, and I'm like, okay, perfect, like I'm built for this, I'm ready to go, and they started counting me down. They're like 10, and my heart was pounding out of my chest, and I was like, oh my gosh, like this is real, like this is what's it like it's really happening right now. And that it was by far one of the now at that point we are live, like I don't have any other takes, so now I'm like, oh my gosh, like okay, I can't mess up, like I can't do anything. And so it honestly, like I know exactly the type of feeling that you're talking about.
No, dude, it's like insane. And I want to take us back for like a second because obviously we're talking about like trials, tribulations, and difficulties. Wanting to be like an optometrist, right? How did that conversation go with your parents? Of hey, by the way, I want to become a sports like on air talent. Which obviously an awesome career, but like when people hear that like their kid wants to be a doctor, like there's a lot of pride that comes with that. So to hear them switch up, like how did they take that, and how did they embrace the change?
Honestly, like it wasn't the easiest thing, but at the same time, my parents are also really supportive. Like when I told them I wanted to change my major, they were like, "All right, well, you know, this is a decision you're gonna have to make. You're a grown man at this point. We can't tell you what to do." And I was like, "Okay, well, I think I want to change to communications." And they were like, "All right, well, look at what careers are out there in communication." So they I wouldn't say they were necessarily opposed, but they were more guiding me, kind of, where they were like, okay, well, this is it's difficult. There's the chances are of you being Stephen A. Smith is slim. That's a one of one person. And I was like, yeah, I know, I understand. But again, they were just really supportive, and I'm so thankful. Of course, it took a little getting used to at first because it's like, hey guys, like yeah, I want to be a sports reporter, and they were like, okay, just be smart, Let. But again, they were super supportive. It's just some of those initial conversations were, and I think even now, when you look at the job market and how saturated it is, like,
Hmm.
my mom will joke around with me every now and then. She's like, it's never too late to be an eye doctor, and I'm like, okay. Um, I appreciate that, but I'm not going down that route.
Dude,
Yeah, like
I understand you so much on that one, dude. When I like my parents have always been supportive of stuff, but like my dad, worked for PSC and G for 30 years, rest in peace, pops. But every day, like, would be proud of what I was doing, but there'd always be like the side conversation of like, hey, I can get you into PSC and G right now. This could be like a nice living, like every day throughout like college. And it's so funny because it's like my dad wasn't really like an emotional guy when he was here, but like when he saw me in like the cap and gown for graduation, that was like he was proud. And it's like, I he told me like I never thought that like you couldn't be able to do this. It's just I am so petrified that I have no clue how to navigate any of the waters that you're about to go into, and
Hmm.
I just have no clue how to help you. So he was like afraid of like what was to come next, but I think he always had faith in it. So like I understand like that conversation for like your mom of just like pulling you back like, hey, follow your dreams, baby, but just know we got options. We don't have to be stuck here, So which for me I think was just always like motivation. I'm sure like that's how you internalize it, just knowing the go-getter that you are, so
no, exactly. Like that was always part of the conversation too, where it was like, look, we're so proud, but at the same time, like let's pull back for a second. Let's take a look. Make sure this is feasible first. And same thing. My mom's a teacher. My dad is a computer programmer. So it was they work very traditional jobs. They've had the same jobs for the last 20 years, right? So um it was kind of that conversation where it was like, all right, like let's see what happened. But the moment I the moment I called my mom when I told her that I had got this new job, she was like, Dorian, I'm at work. You're about to make me cry. Like, I'm so happy for you right now. And you know, when I did my first hit and I sent it to him, my mom she shared it with everybody. Same thing. My dad shared it with everybody. His coworkers were watching it. My aunts, uncles. I got so many messages and everything. Like, it definitely, like I said, they definitely see the work that's being put in. It was that initial where it's like, okay, well, like let's make sure that this is the right decision we're making.
And speaking, oh, go ahead, Ed.
Yeah, I was gonna ask. I was gonna transition back to what you said earlier when you talked about Stephen A. Smith being such a huge inspiration. That there's only one of one Stephen A. Smith, and you also talked about how you were sort of an introvert growing up, and Stephen A. Smith's probably the exact opposite of an introvert. So it's like what I wanted to ask in terms of that is how do you want to like craft your on-air style to emulate sort of your inspirations, but also being your own person.
Honestly, I think it's more of an embracing of who I am, right? Like, I know I'm an introvert, I know, but I also know, like, my some of my best friends know I can be goofy as I don't know what, right? Like, so it's more of taking a little bit of what, Stephen A does, taking a little what some of my other mentors like Bill Daughtry, Dexter Henry, Steve Weish, a lot of these people, Chelsea Sherrod, a lot of what they do, and making it my own. Like, I even take a little bit from Stuart Scott, who obviously is one of the best to have ever done it. Right, like I did a hit maybe 2, 3 Fridays ago where I remember I was watching the Stuart Scott documentary that they had played when he passed, and he was talking about boxing, and I was like, okay, well, I really like what he did here, and that kind of fits me as a person. Let me see what I can do. And so I did a hit talking about the Boxing Hall of Fame. I was like, all right, who's got the best left hook? Right, like kind of just trying to have a little bit of fun. And I think it really, like I said, it really just came down and comes down to embracing who I am. Like, a lot of people, they see me and it's like, well, Dorian's kind of serious, and I'm like, I'm the exact opposite. Like, you guys, once you get to know me, it's a completely different feel. Like, because again, like, I'm a guy that likes to have fun. Again, like, when it comes to my work, I'm gonna lock in. I'm gonna do my work. I'm gonna make sure that I get what I need to have fun, have done. But I do still like to have fun, and I think that's the one thing that I've learned trying to be on air is just have fun. We get to sit down and talk about sports or watch a game. Like, it's not the most serious job in the world. So, like, why not just have my personality shown a little more? It's gonna be a little different, of course, because got to make it sound exciting, but at the same time, like, we what's not exciting about sitting down and watching a game go to overtime, and then like, these reactions are my actual reactions. Like, I think that's something that people need to understand. Like, if I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, I'm literally acting like that because that's how I would act if I'm watching a game.
For the record, that left hook, my friend, Captain Hook, Roy Jones. Second off, talking about those games, those exciting moments, right? Let's go to Kane University here, right, where you become the voice of Kane University. When people talk Kane sports, let's be honest. There's only two names that come to my mind, and anybody that you ask around, it's Dorian Alert and John Edmond. How did that pairing come to be, and how did you guys, basically grow Kane's broadcasting, sector for like their athletics? They've always had good athletics, but you guys were really like the first faces of putting it on, I feel like. So what was it like starting that up and being a part of that dynamic duo getting after it?
Yeah, honestly, John Edmond is one of my best friends to this day. And we didn't even realize that when we met each other that it was going to be like that. So, to backtrack a little bit, I started fall 2021 calling games for Kane, and when I started, my supervisor Asia, she was like, "Yeah, I have this vision for what we're doing. I want to basically make Kane D3's ESPN," and I said, "Okay, cool. Let's make it happen. And so, you know, I actually watched a lot of what Montclair State was doing. I watched a lot of what Rowan was doing, a lot of Stockton. And I'm like, okay, well, like these are good broadcasts, but like, how can we make this better? And so me and John actually met at a Kane Montclair State basketball game where, you know, you traveled to games. We didn't, but you guys traveled to games with radio, I believe. And it was him and Jack Bartek.
The goats.
And absolutely two goats right there. So we all, you know, we talked at that point. You know, basketball was my thing, right? Like I love all sports. I love football. I have a love for volleyball now, and I'm sure we'll get into that as well. But like I have a love for volleyball. Again, all sports I have a love for, but basketball was my thing. So I remember game right before game one. Actually, I think it was the Montclair State game where my supervisor was like, "All right, you guys are going to be on camera for this," and I was like, "Okay, well, if we're going to be on camera, then like let's wear suits." And they were like, "Oh, well, you know that's different. It's never been done." I was like, "Guys, if we want to make this look like a professional broadcast, let's make it look like a pro broadcast." So I told my partner at the time, Jish, I was like, "Bro, come in, wear a suit." And and that was really the first time that I met John and Jack, and they were like, "Wow, like this is different." We exchanged information and everything. And literally the following year, I was calling a field hockey game, and I went live on Instagram, and John hopped in the live, and he was like, "Bro, like, text me when you're done with this." I was like, "Okay, cool." And him being the person he is one of the best people I've ever met. And he was like, "Bro, like, when if you ever need any help, I will be more than glad to call games with you." And I'm like, "Bro, you are more than welcome to come and call games with us." Like I was like, "Let me talk to my supervisor first." I talked to Asia. She was like, "Hey, I'm gonna trust you. She was like, on air, that's your show. If you want to bring him on, by all means." And I was like, "Absolutely," because I know the type of work that he's gonna put in. So he came in. He obviously came in and crushed it. Like I've learned so much just sitting next to him and listening to how he calls games. Because I'm not gonna lie, when I was calling games, like if you listen back to my clips from the first time I called a game to now, is totally different. And I literally cringed listening to some of them sometimes because I'm like, oh my gosh, this was so bad. Like,
I still gotta
but
ask.
what's so?
Sorry. Do you still call games?
Oh, go ahead. Yes, I do. Yeah, this past year I was calling games at Duville University, and I went back to Kane and did a basketball game against NJCU back in January. Yeah, January. It was unfortunate right after we lost the AFC Championship game, but it was like Pro Bowl week. Had a weekend off. I was like, let me come home, call a game. But yeah, no, me and him kind of we started from there. I shared with him my supervisor's um, dream of wanting to make this more professional, and he was like, "Well, let's do it up. Let's make it even bigger." And so, we just started having fun on air, and I think people started to recognize that we were just having fun. Like it was two guys. Eventually, it ended up being three, four, sometimes five of us, and we were just all on air having a good time talking sports as friends. Like it was conversations that we ended up having, and a lot of late nights, a lot of early mornings, just trying to prep, trying to make sure that we do it right. I lived almost an hour away from Kane, so I'm driving on Saturday mornings to get up there so we can watch practice. um, and like I said, John, he's got the opportunity to work with a lot of really great people in this industry, and it's just we just continue to elevate, continue to grow that. And ever since I like I said, I did one game this year, but they just continue to do great things at Kane. He was calling the NJAC playoff game this year, and I feel like every year Kane's broadcast has just gotten better, and it you know I'm not the reason that it did it. I had a whole group of people around me that just wanted to be great, wanted to be better, from our camera operators to our directors. Like I said, my supervisors, Asia, Sean. Everybody just wanted to be great. We call my guy Gene, we call him 2020 Visuals. Shameless plug. And then my guy Elvin. They're doing things too at like Red Bull, Princeton University. They're doing all these things, and they're like, all right, well, And our mentality is always, okay, if we see this outside, how can we bring this to Kane? How can we make our broadcast simulate a lot of these others? And that really was it. Like it wasn't just me and John, right? Like I think we get the recognition because people hear our voices, but it was a lot of people behind the scenes that they were putting in just as much, if not more, work than us. I tell people all the time, like my main job is really just to get up there and yap. Like that's what my job. Again, there's a lot of prep. There's a lot of things that go into it, but I'm like my main job is to get up there and yap. Like I'm just a talker, right? So there's a lot of people that behind the scenes that just they kill it and crush it every single time, and they make us look way better. And we literally couldn't do our jobs without them, right? Like you can put on a game and not have any sound, but if you have some sound now, there's radio broadcasts and stuff, but I'm like, look, I can't do I we don't look as good without you guys. And so, that's really how it started. Again, it started with an idea, and we just were like, all right, well, how can we make it better?
Just trying to get better each day with him, man. I got to shout out John Edmond again, bro. Like, if it wasn't for him, man, we'd be nowhere. John actually, we started off through radio calls. Actually, Jack Bartek was the one that put us on, and then my first like game that went like, oh my god, this is crazy. Like, there was a football game with like a mishap, but like the one where it's like my most professional call, like my first one that like it felt like I got the honor to do color commentary with John. First time I ever met him was at the court. Like we just go and hit it, and there was just a natural chemistry. And then next thing I know, I had a champion for me every step of the way, and that's what has allowed me to like keep on moving forward. And then I'm sure Ant has a story of his own of just like that moment that just like
Yep.
clicked, where it's like things are obviously were happening like before them, but that's what really trampolined it to like the next level for me. So I will always have love for John Edmond, that's for sure. So, and what was yours?
Oh, with John?
Just like the moment that it was like,
Well, my first
this
game I ever
is
called was with John as well for WMSC.
Mhm.
And I remember at that point, I had no idea how to make a spot board. I had like these scribbled up. I put all my notes on like a piece of lined notebook paper, and I just had it in front of me. One for Montclair, one for I think it was either TCNJ women's basketball or it was Stockton men's basketball. I think TCNJ might have been my first one. I had the TCNJ women's versus Montclair women's, and I had Montclair women's scribbled notes on one page, TCNJ scribbled notes on another page. And I'm sitting there like trying to call the game, and first time I ever did it, I'm nervous, my voice is shaky, I'm stuttering a little bit, and I'm just like, all right, this isn't going that great. I look over at John, and John just gives me one of these. Relax, take a breath, relax. And I'm like, okay, no, this isn't that deep. Like maybe nobody will ever find this in 30 years. This is like the last call I ever do. So I'm like, all right, let's just go and do this. So I ended up just like relaxing, settling in, and by like the second quarter, I felt like just totally comfortable. And John made me feel comfortable in that moment. And then I just after that, I was like, okay, I did one game. That's a start. So now like I can do more. I might have done like one or two other games with John in my career. I did the Metro Classic with John. I did one game with him there. But like it was like his calmness and collectedness to just look at me and be like, yo, it's okay, it's cool. Like you're here right now because you've shown in the past that you can do something like this. So go out and do it. And that was the confidence I needed at that point. So we all have that John Edmond story.
No,
dude,
absolutely.
like I said, dude, just a goat. But you did just say something that leads us to like our next spot, which is like having that just like faith essentially to take that next step and go after. And for Dorian, you end up with an internship for the Bills as a writer on like their daily activities, from practice, game recaps, player interviews. Like how does that come about, and what was that experience like?
Oof, honestly, that was a crazy experience in and of itself. Like we kind of touched on it a little bit. The job market is tough right now, right? Like I didn't have any internships throughout college. It was, my internship was essentially my graduate assistantship and calling games and doing things in the athletic department at Kane. So I was like, okay, like I graduated in December of 2023, and I'm like, all right, well, I need a job, right? Like I got lucky enough, with my master's degree, I was able to teach, and so I was an adjunct professor. But while I'm a professor, I'm like, all right, well, like I still want to work in sports. I still want to be able to be in this field and be in this career. So, just started applying literally every single day. I remember my students, we were talking about resume writing and LinkedIn and everything, and they were like, oh, well, can we see your LinkedIn? And I'm like, yeah, sure. So, I'm navigating through, and I went to my Save Jobs tab, and they were like, wait, how many jobs have you applied to? And I think the number at the time was over 300. And they were like, holy crap. Like, that's insane. And I'm like, look, guys, I am literally applying every single day. So, apply to the Bills. I don't want to say I didn't think too much of it, but it was one of those things where it's like, all right, well, like it's an NFL team, like let's see what's gonna happen. Get an email from our team reporter, and she's like, hey, like we want to interview you. Go through the first interview. I'm like, okay, cool. This is gonna be cool. Hopefully I get a second call. End up getting a second call, and I'm like, okay, like let's really go in and crush this. I remember I talked to my mentors, I talked to everybody, and they were like, all right, well, just go in, be yourself, do what you do, and then everything will work out the way it's supposed to. Um, and literally, I remember I had just finished teaching a class. I was walking. Funny enough, I was walking through the athletic department at Kane because again, even though I wasn't calling games at that point, still had really good relationships. I went to see the athletic trainer just to say hi. I get a call on my phone, and it's our content coordinator, and he was like, "Hey, we want to offer you the job." And I kid you not, like I had to step out of the athletic training room. I went in my car and I cried because I was like, "Oh my gosh!" Like I I got the job offer, and so I was like, "Okay, this is incredible." Called him back the next day. I was like, "Yeah, I want to accept it." And literally his first, he said, "Let's go!" Like I was just so happy about it. My parents were ecstatic. Again, called my family and friends just to be like, "Hey guys," like I called my sister, and I was like, I got the job, and she's like, okay, congrats. She's like, good job, big brother. And I'm like, thank you. And then honestly, the next, I got that call in. It was right after the draft, so I got the call in May. Um, and actually, no, I think it was right before the draft. Actually, so it was still April at that point. And so the next shoot at this point, the next year has just been it's been incredible. It's been so crazy because I moved up during train or right before training camp, maybe a couple of days right before. Um, I meet all the other interns. We're having conversations, and then training camp starts, and it's like, all right, we're full go. You're this is real. And I just remember the biggest moment to me. It wasn't even like it wasn't even sitting in Josh Allen's press conference. Like Josh is sitting right in front. I'm literally front row. And like I think if you look back at some of the training camp recordings, you can literally see the back of my head sitting in the press conference. But it was more so sitting in Von Miller's press conference, and because I was like, oh my gosh, like I have watched you on TV since I was maybe 11 years old. And now you're sitting right in front of me, and I get the opportunity to ask you questions about what's going on. And so, honestly, like I said, that it was just such a crazy experience. It was this past year was one of the best and most fun years of my life, right? Like just from being in the NFL facility, being around these players, being around coaches. I have some great relationships in that building with some people I would call friends for sure. Some I've met some people that I would consider family, right? Like these people, even though it was just a year, like these people in this building, it's just incredible. Just to I think there's nothing else like it. And yeah, like I said, it was just such a crazy year, such a fun year. Especially like the Bills were good this year, right? Like I think that everyone says it, but it's so true. Winning is fun. Like
Hmm.
it was so fun. So we just had a great time, and like I said, I met some incredible people. And yeah, it was just so crazy, man.
Beat my
And
Ravens.
with that crazy year, there's been I got to put you on the spot right now, my man. There's been a debate on this podcast ever since, like, I feel like last year, even before, like, we started doing like this particular platform. It's always like the biggest thing is MVP. Who deserves the MVP, right? Like, I am unfortunately with you, a Dallas Cowboys fan, so I firmly believe that Dak Prescott should have been the MVP last year. Me and Ant been going back and forth, and he finally conceded that Dak should have gotten that MVP. But he believes, being a Ravens fan, that Lamar Jackson deserved the MVP this year. And I said, no, I don't believe that. I think it deserved to go to Josh Allen. Being around that team and just in that facility, can you make the case once and for all why Josh Allen deserved that MVP?
First and foremost, you see the logo on here, so I'm always gonna ride for Mr. MVP Josh Allen. But honestly, like you see the way that the team played while they were out there. He didn't even play in some of those fourth quarters, right? He didn't play in the fourth quarter against Jacksonville. Didn't play at all in the Week 18 game, other than one snap against the Patriots. In the games that they were playing, he played outstanding. Limited the turnovers. I don't remember the exact number of interceptions he had, but it was so small compared to the interceptions he had the previous year. Offense scored the highest number of points that they've ever scored. They were, I believe, top 3 in scoring at the end of this year. Josh had multiple games where he was incredible. Led them literally against the Lions by himself. 6 total touchdowns. Hurt a lot of people's fantasy football teams that day, but also helped a ton of people's fantasy football teams that day too. Had an incredible game against the Rams. And he just all year, I think, even just being around the team and being around him, it would, he just seemed to be in control the entire time, right? It was the first year of a new offense. On top of that, Joe Brady in his first full season as an offensive coordinator, like I don't think you can say anything different. Like he was MVP. Like I understand the Lamar Jackson argument. I totally do. But at the same time, you also got to look at it. Josh had better numbers than Lamar the year before, and Lamar won MVP, right? So the NFL, in all honesty, I don't know how these things actually work, but it was probably just a correction type of thing too, where they were like, well, we did it last year, so we can do it this year, where we can give to the guy that has a better record. And in all honesty, like we were what 14-3 this year, if I remember correctly, or yeah, 14-3, cause
No, they're
maybe
13
13
and
and 4.
4. 13 and 4. The Ravens were 12 and 5.
Yeah, yeah, 13-4. So better overall team success. And I mean, I know it's a regular season award, so the postseason doesn't factor into it, but we did beat the Ravens in the divisional round. So, saying.
I
Thank you, Mark
appreciate you
Andrews.
for that. I know that this is hurting it right now, and I'm sorry to open up those old wounds, but I had to get a professional's input from somebody that's actually been around the organization, and being around that organization. I see that you got like that Bills logo on it. Obviously, you're living up in upstate New York, where I'm sure it's heavy Bills country. But being a Cowboys fan, but now finding like an adopted home with like the Bills, man. Where's your fandom at right now? Like, I know there's got to be a struggle because you got personal relationships over there with this organization. So like for you, like is there ever going to be a day where Dorian Alerte is not rooting for the Cowboys and just goes full fledged into the Bills or whatever other organization he's working for down the line?
No, 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 absolutely not. I'm always gonna root for my Cowboys. Even this year, even though I wasn't 100% tapped in, always everybody knew in our group chat. They were when the Cowboys were playing. They were like, "Oh, well, here go Dorian's gonna be talking." I'm like, absolutely. If we had a Sunday off, yeah, I'm sitting there talking. So, no, but at the same time, the Bills will always have a fan out of me, right? Like I said, I have good relationships within the building, between just staff, coaches, and players. So I'm always gonna be rooting for those guys. But honestly, like I said, like it's just the the vibe and everything this year. Like it was so fun. And I think they'll always have a fan out of me, right? Like just I don't think there was any other organization that I probably would have started working for. Like obviously working for the Cowboys would be a dream, but I think Yeah, it was just it was incredible just to have that. So they definitely have a fan out of me. I'm always rooting for their success unless they play the Cowboys, but other than that, they'll have a fan out of me for sure.
And with that success, right? Josh and Lamar get a lot of flack for one thing. Like, obviously, they're both individual great players, but it's always they can't get the job done. They can't win the Super Bowl. Not that it's necessarily their fault, but like, a lot of it does go on the quarterback. Being around that organization, being a fan of football, studying the game, and all that. What do you think is the biggest key to the Bills finally, breaking the four losses in a row streak, just getting the job done and celebrating that glorious moment? Like, what do you think is their biggest key to that success if they make the change?
Nah, I mean, in all honesty, as I've learned, everything kind of runs through that offense, and it's not just Josh. It's James Cook. It's Ray Davis, Ty Johnson. That running back room is incredible. And I tell you, like those three guys in that running back room. But on top of that, it's just Joe Brady's play calling. He had his little stint in Carolina. It didn't go out the way that he wanted it to. He was able to learn from it, and he had a very, very successful offense this year. The Bills were the first team in NFL history to go 30 for 30, 30 rushing touchdowns and 30 passing touchdowns. Um, and I think they're just going to continue to build off that success. On top of, I think Bobby Babich was a first year defensive coordinator. So I think getting that defense to really buy in, and there were times where they really did. I think they're getting them to really lock in and continue to be great. I think it's going to be huge for them. And I'm honestly looking forward to this next season. Right, the draft starts tomorrow night on. I don't know when you guys are going to air this, but it starts on Thursday, and then by that point, it's time to start locking in and preparing for the 2025 season. So I'm sure, honestly, in all honesty, if the Cowboys don't hoist the Lombardi at the end of the season, I honestly hope it's the Bills.
I always planned on this interview with ending with like the final question of who you think that the Bills were going to draft, but you brought it up. Let's just get right to it. They got a late first round pick, obviously with the success that they've had. Everybody's saying defense, defense, defense. Do you believe it's going to be defense? And is there a name that maybe, just maybe, you've been hearing floating around a little bit, or just an educated guess that you think that they're going to be going?
In all honesty, I have no idea. I would love to see them go defense. I think when you look at some of the needs that they have on that defensive side of the football, it's honestly not much. And I think at that point you can kind of draft best player available at that point. So at 30 it's kind of tough to be like, all right, where, like, who's going to be left on the board, especially, shoot, you see every single possibility out there. Shoot, we thought Shador Sanders a month ago was going to go number 3 overall. Now people are saying he'd go 21, right? Like, or shoot, even potentially drop into the second round. So it's like we never really know who's gonna. Someone might be on the board that we have no idea. So I would love to see them go defense. When you think about some of the guys, or just some of the positions that they may need, maybe they go safety. That safety room that they do have is young already, between DeMar Hamlin, Cole Bishop. Taylor Rapp is experienced, but he's still. I don't even think he's 30 years old yet, so he's still young. And you still need a corner to go opposite Christian Benford. I know they signed Trey White the other day, but I mean, if you go corner, I wouldn't be too upset. You go D line, like they could literally go anywhere, especially with this being such a strong defensive draft. So I honestly wish I had an answer for you guys. At this point, I don't even know who's been in the building. Right, I've been out of there for a month. So, but no, I just think it. I honestly think whoever they get is going to be an impact player immediately at 30. Shoot, who knows if they trade back? I know Brandon Beane has traded back the last couple of years too. So, I honestly, I'm excited.
Just hopefully it's not with the
I don't know.
Chiefs.
Yeah,
And for our fantasy players out there, fantasy football, right? Was the link up with Shakir, was it a fluke? Is there a legitimate chemistry you're seeing from that? Like, is that somebody that gonna be high on your draft board for wide receiver this year? Because he's looking like Josh's best friend out there.
Oh, absolutely. Look, honestly, Khalil Shakir is one of my favorite just people overall, right? Like he's such an awesome guy. Um, what's so funny is I didn't even realize it at first. He carries himself a lot older than he is. So I think that's honestly what Josh kind of likes too, where he's very mature for his age. I remember one day we were just sitting around and we were like, it was around the time he got his contract extension, and we were sitting around and I'm writing the article on him getting his contract extension, and I was like, wait a minute, we're the same age as Khalil. We were like, wait, what? We all looked and like, yeah, like we sometimes we totally forget, but he is definitely one of my favorite people. And on top of that, he's a great receiver. Like he's Mr. Reliable when it comes to the hands. I think he had 24, 25, maybe 27 consecutive targets that he caught, and broke Michael Thomas's record. So he is Mr. Sure Hands. I like I said, I love him as a person, but as a receiver too, he is incredible. And I think him coming out the slot, but hey, it's not just him though, right? Like you got a Keon Coleman who's headed into year two. I think Keon's gonna have a great second year. Josh spoke about Keon yesterday, where he's already seeing improvements, and they just got to OTAs. Like you look at the rest of that receiver, they added Josh Palmer, who is a great route runner. Again, Josh spoke about that yesterday too, where he was like, he is an incredible route runner. And I think just continuing to look at that receiver core, they're going to continue to grow. I think they're going to miss Mac Hollins because Mac was kind of that. He's one of their glue guys. I know he doesn't put up crazy numbers, and honestly, no one kind of did in the everybody eats type of offense that they had with Joe Brady. But at the same time, like guys were consistent, right? Like you were never going to see a guy get 12 catches for 200 yards like Julio Jones used to back in the day, right? But they were always just really consistent, and they just continue to find ways to win. So I think when you look at that offense, on top of they have an incredible offensive line, right? Like, and I think that's where a lot of it starts from. Josh was the least sacked quarterback this year, so if you give Josh time, he'll be able to dial it up and pick people apart.
And speaking of ways to win, you know, obviously with the job at WUTR, what is the ultimate goal for Dorian Alert? Just moving on through the careers. Like obviously you want to cherish this moment with the opportunity at WTR, but obviously everybody has aspirations, right? So what is the ultimate crescendo for the career of Dorian Alert if he had his way completely?
Oof, if I had my way completely, honestly, I just want I don't want to not give you an answer, right? Like I think we all have those goals in mind and everything. Like honest, I would love to anchor Sports Center. That would be a dream come true. That would be incredible. But at the same time, it's like I just want to continue to get better every single day. Like I do have my goals. Like I said, anchoring Sports Center is one of those things. But also at the same time, it's like, all right, like where can I fit in? I had a conversation with another friend recently where they're on the camera ops side, and we were like, yo, how cool would it be if you like they were talking to me, they were like, how cool would it be if you're calling the game and we're your camera ops and I'm the director in the truck, and like and it's you and John on this call, and like those are the things that I think about, where it's like, how can me and all my friends be successful, and that's really my ultimate goal, where it's like, hey, when we get through with this, you know what what are the things that we're going to talk about, and it's really like, okay, well, we were really successful. We called this game together, and at the end of the night, we took a picture on the court or on the football field or whatever, and it's all of us, right? Like, I think that is something that I think will matter to me a lot more than some of the accolades, right? Like I said, anchoring Sports Center would be incredible. Being a reporter for ESPN would be absolutely incredible. But I think, in all honesty, like just being there and having all my friends with me, whether it's shoot, especially if it's people that I met with the Bills. Like I said, the social media intern that I met She was amazing. The photography intern Angelo, he is awesome. One of the best photographers I've ever been around. Social media intern's name is Alex. She, like I said, she's amazing. Emily Lavanis is an amazing videographer. She was our videographer intern this year. If I get to call the game with John Edmond, if I get to call the game with either one of you guys, if I get to, be a sideline reporter, whatever, I think that if my guys Sean, Elvin, and Gene are camera ops, and I'm the talent, and we get to do that, or if I'm in studio and I get to kick it, hey John, over to you, like those are the type of things that I see as the ultimate goal, and those things that I see, like if me and all my people are thriving, then then we're winning, and I win at that point.
Man, just gave me chills over here, bro. That was one of the most beautiful things I've ever heard. Like, I
You're
love it.
speaking his
I
language right
wasn't.
now.
Yeah, dude, that was just, that I think we just get caught up in, just the grind and trying to succeed. But like, that answers right there is all encompassing of stop and smell the roses and enjoy the moment more so than enjoy the end of the destination. So I love hearing that, bro. That was one of the best answers I've ever heard to any question ever, honestly. That was
No,
dope.
no, in
You
all
know,
honesty too, like that just comes from my mentors and having conversations with them. They were like, hey, obviously have goals, have them written down, but enjoy the journey, right? Like enjoy everything that you're going through, because you're only going to be able to experience it once. And then on top of that, the other half of that really is, okay, now how can I give back? Because like I said, I was a kid sending cold DMs out of nowhere, just, hey, can I have a conversation? Can you give me any type of advice? And I just want to be able to do the same thing. There's gonna be some kid that wants to get into this industry that's gonna reach out to me one day, right? And I want to be one of those people that they can lean on and be like, hey, well, like every journey is different, but here was my journey, and here are the people that I went through it with, and how can we make it better, and how can this next generation be even better than we were, right? Like we come from a time where we all got to be grinders, right? Like, and this career is not easy by any stretch of the any stretch of the imagination, but no, we're all grinding. We're all trying to find a way to make it in, and like I said, we're curious. We're asking questions. So that next generation, they're gonna come to us and be like, "Hey, what can I do to be even better than you guys?" And we got to be willing to tell them, like, "Hey, I'm not going anywhere yet, but this is how you can get better, and how you can be successful." And I think, real quick story, like I remember I went to, like I said, Bill Daughtry is one of my an uncle of mine, basically, right? Like he didn't know him from anything. Same thing with Rob Parker. He's another mentor that is such a great friend, and honestly, like I look at them as family now, right? And went to Bill invited me to a Somerset Patriots baseball game, and at the time, if any Yankees fans, Anthony Volpe was there, so we went to watch Volpe. And we're sitting there, and there are a couple of they were probably around our age, couple of guys, and I think at the time I was maybe 22. And we're sitting at the game, and they're like, "Oh, this is," and Bill chimes in, and he's having the conversation. They're like, "You look really familiar," and he was like, "They're like, are you a broadcaster?" And Bill's reaction literally was, "I was," but, and he looks at me and he's like, "Now it's his turn." And that was kind of one of those things where I was like, that was really cool. Just for him to recognize, okay, like, he did what he did. He's retired now, but he's still giving back. And I try to talk to him at least once a month over the phone. I'm always sending him my clips, because I know if I want an honest opinion, he will give me an honest opinion, like, hey, that was bad, or hey, you can do, this is good, this is how you can be better. So I think that is definitely one of those things where like I said, ultimate goal is being successful with me and my friends and my people that I came up with. But on top of that, just being able to give back, and tell them this was my journey, this is how I did things, and you guys can be even better than I was.
yeah, man. Dude, that's awesome, man. I always think of just like the we always have a running joke of, oh, I can't wait to put this in the memoir, especially on the bad days of this journey. It was just like cannot wait to put this in a chapter with it, man, and just looking back on things. And I know, for me, for us, that day where we were down in Rowan and just ran into each other randomly, trying to just hear Stephen A. Smith speak, and then after the seminar, just trying to meet him. Unfortunately, that was unsuccessful, but like those are moments that I will always remember and cherish, dude, because it's just like that's just a whole part of the story, man. And listen, we know that you got a lot more to come, man. We thank you for coming out onto this platform, bro. We wish you nothing but the best of luck. We're gonna be championing you the entire way. WUTR, look out. Everybody's got to go catch that, my man, giving updates, and they are fire with it. Check him out on Instagram at Dorian Alert. Check him out on LinkedIn. Anything else you want to plug while you're here, my man?
Nah, honestly, I just want to say thank you guys for having me. This was fun. I'm really glad that we got to do this. And honestly, like anything you guys ever need from me, you know how to reach out.
For sure, man. We're definitely gonna have you back on. And yeah, listen, I know you're an NBA man too. We're gonna be getting you back for playoffs if you got some time with it. Last, give me one prediction, right for the end for playoffs, man.
Ooh, playoffs. Ooh, that. I'm an OKC fan, so I'm gonna say OKC go to the Western Conference Finals. But I think,
Don't be humble about it. Don't you dare be humble about it.
Lakers.
Say it with your chest. Say it with your chest.
Lakers in 5. No,
I'm lucky if it's Lakers in 7 right now.
I think the Lakers will advance in this round, but I think it'll end up being OKC Lakers in the Western Conference Finals. I think OKC ends up taking it in 7, but I do they might lose to Boston.
Okay. I appreciate the honesty with it. I also see OKC and Boston coming out of both sides, man. What a take. I hope you're right about my Lakers. I have a little bit of faith right now, but I don't know where it's going. But, man, again, we want to thank you for everybody. Thank you for supporting this platform. Mazz and Bad Show. Again, shout out Charlie Badwini and Cafone, the best producer in the business right now. We appreciate you, brother. You can follow us on YouTube at Mazz and Bads, Instagram at Mazz and Bads. Anywhere else I'm missing?
Hey,
all your
tuned
socials.
Tomorrow we got that live stream for the NFL draft, so stay tuned for that if you guys want to watch that.
Yeah, Dorian, I would love to hear a grade from you with how we did with it. We got a couple of mock drafts out there, but the 3.0 version coming out, I believe, in a couple of hours. We got to hit that real quick, and then we will have the live reaction to see how we did with it. So I would love to hear your opinions on that, brother. And like we said, we wish you the best of luck moving forward. And one last thing, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, you know where to find us. And don't forget the name Dorian Alert, because I promise you're going to be hearing a lot more of it down the line.
Hey, keep killing it, guys.